So let's go and have a look at Please Bish on the weekend television shows where Mr. Jack Tame delves down and deep into two things. Will more smoking kill more people? And of course, Bishop says, I don't accept that. And then, which is worst words I can use in the world. Then he's also asks him about these things in Northland. And he refuses to acknowledge. It is quite fascinating television to watch. I'm sure you'll all enjoy it.
In your first 100 days, you will repeal those smoke-free changes. Compared to business as usual, do you accept that those changes would have saved lives?
No, I think the evidence is not.
No. Sorry. In case that no wasn't clear enough. So stopping smoking, do you concede that those changes would have saved lives? No. So that's his position is stopping smoking would not, there's no evidence to say that would stop people from, say, getting lung cancer due to smoking. We'll just replay that in case you missed it.
Saved lives?
No, I think the evidence is not there on that.
I was just thinking, Chewy, you know how when you run to the end of the cliff and you fall off it 100 meters down, right? And you run to the and you fall off 100 meters down and you die. If we stop the people running and jumping off that cliff, do we think that would save lives, or do we need some evidence for that? No more people jumping off the cliff, please. Well, we've got a big high fence up now that they can't climb over. There's no more people jumping over that cliff. Will that save lives? According to Chris Bishop, no. I haven't seen the evidence for that yet, would be his response.
No, I think the evidence is not there on that. Actually, the changes are highly speculative. Actually, were opposed, as I understand it, by some people in the sort of anti-smoking, smoke-free movement. Things like, for example, having one store in Northland that can sell cigarettes. I mean,
Jack's looking at his notes. Jack's looking at his notes. Be careful.
I've got that one.
Jack's looking at his notes. Be careful, Mr. Bishop.
Store would have to be Fort Knox. It would end up being targets of ram raids and theft and crime. And the idea that just having one store in Northland won't lead to a black market in tobacco and cigarettes.
Where does that one store in Northland come from?
Well, the government published, basically the plan, as I understand it, I'm by no means an expert on it, but as I understand it, the government published a plan to significantly reduce down the number of retail outlets where you could buy cigarettes. And my understanding is that they basically proposed one store for the Northland region. So people would have to travel, vast distances
I went through the list
to cigarettes if they were a smoker.
Yeah, I went through the list that was produced by the Director General of Health in September of this year. So there are going to be 600 stores nationwide, right? I went through the list.
Before he does this, though, just think about it. And look, I'm embarrassed I didn't think about this. If they said there was going to be 600 stores, I'm embarrassed I didn't click onto this straight away. Proportionally, Northland, if you think about the land mass, right, would be maybe a fifth or a sixth of the North Island, so maybe a 12th of the whole country. Land mass. Population, there'll be a lot less than a 12th because it's pretty sparsely populated. But to think that a 12th of the country would have 1/6 of 1% of the stores makes no logical sense. So I'm a bit embarrassed. I missed out. I didn't think through it logically, but if you just seen the new hashtag we're going to go with now, Jack's looking at his notes. It's what he's doing right now.
The Director General had to consider population, smoking rates in different parts of New Zealand. By my count, Northland would have 35 tobacco outlets.
Yeah, well, I haven't seen that list, but my understanding is that, and Northland is one of those examples, but there are other parts of the country.
But you just said one, you just said one. Hang on a second, you just said one.
Seller of tobacco.
No, but you just said one, and that's
right. There'd be one store in Northland. That's my understanding. Yes.
That's what the Prime Minister said the other day as well. But the Director General of Health has published a list with 35 for Northland, so hardly start.
Well, I haven't seen that list, but there's no doubt that
so why do you keep on saying one?
Down the number of outlets from 6.
What? Yeah, did you just say it's part of your job? I mean, if you're making these statements and making these things, the Director General releases the information. Why the fuck have you not seen it? Why the fuck have your people not seen it? Now, on one level, right? On one level, people make mistakes. I did it when I was talking about this on Twitter today. I said they're out by 90%, 97%. We make mistakes, but I'm not making promises to the country as to how I'm going to run the country and giving them reasons as to why I'm cancelling policy. My mistakes are because I'm an idiot buffhead from the bottom of the South Island. Your mistakes turn into policy being made that the whole country has to abide by. This mistake involves a policy that's going to kill, according to research, 8,000 more people by 2040. I think you getting it right is a bit more important than me getting it right, Chewy.
Yeah, so what we're seeing from the leader of the House right here is learning, apparently in real time, the difference between being in opposition and being in government.
Yeah.
In opposition, you can just say any old fucking shit and just go, yeah, the other guys did it and it's bad. And he's tried that now. It is not across the thing that he's there to speak about. Like, you can't just go, well, that's my understanding. No, you go, these are the numbers that I have seen because I am good at my job. And to not be like, we spoke about this last year, of like, one of the worst things that you can do is leave your leader in a position of repeating some dumbassery that you've decided to come up with.
Yep.
Because your leader is going to have to fucking walk it back. And nobody likes doing that. If you're a good leader, you might cop to it. If you're a bad leader, you might throw some members of your team into the grinder.
Yeah, or under the bus, under the bish bus. All right, let's play a bit more of this and then we'll move on.
Yeah, that's right. That's my understanding is there'll be one store in Northland and significantly reduced number around the country, and in lots of other parts of the country, you would have just one or two potential stores. That's what happens when you have a licensing.
Chris, I've just told you there are 35 in Northland.
Reduce the numbers. Well, I don't know how much further we can take this. My understanding is there's just one available in Northland. But regardless, you're going to see significantly reduced numbers of tobacco outlets. And our view is that will lead to a black market and it will lead to ram raids and those stores becoming Fort Knox. It's the exact opposite of what we want.
I read Treasury's regulatory impact statement for the Smokefree Aotearoa action plan. It suggested the plan would result in $5 billion in health spending savings, $5 billion in productivity gain.
So remember that. $5 billion in health savings. So that's $5 billion we don't have to spend, and $5 billion in earned income. That's $5 billion we get. That's a $10 billion hole. $10 billion that this is going to cost the country. $10 billion.
And that the plan would save thousands of lives. You say there is no evidence that would be the effect, but your government has said that other changes it would introduce would help to reduce smoking rates instead. What sort of changes might help to reduce smoking rates that your government would support?
Well, New Zealand smoking rates have been on the decline actually since the last national-led government.
That wasn't the question.
Government of two.
That wasn't the question. Tell us about how you're going to bring numbers down.
2008 onwards, significantly raised excise on tobacco, introduced plain packaging, for example, as well, a range of other.
You fought that, motherfucker.
And remember, Chewy, what you've always said, he's talking about what they did do in the past. He's saying this is what did happen. That wasn't the question.
So our smoking rates have been declining, and we want them to continue to decline as well. We just don't think limited number of stores, the other measures that the government has proposed are the right way to go about doing that. But we do want to see fewer people smoking and taking up smoking. And actually, that is what is happening. The other thing that's happened is vaping, of course, has become an alternative to smoking significantly.
That's enough time for him. I'm bored with his face. The other thing something that Ian did say today in my conversation, which I will now relay, is he actually made the point, and I'm paraphrasing, you can't have it both ways, Bish. You can't say we are going to be the party that gets ram raids under control, that's going to stop ram raids, and also say we can't reduce the number of outlets that sell cigarettes because of ram raids. You can't have it both ways. If you're the party that's going to get ram raids under control, then you can't use ram raids as an excuse for not doing something, Chewy.
Absolutely. There are so many holes, so poorly defended positions. Like, that was like sending a 5-year-old out to fight Mike Tyson. That was embarrassing. But let's take some of this apart, right? Let's start with this. Plain packaging fucking won't work.
Yeah.
It just won't work, Pat.
Yeah.
Tobacco giant Philip Morris claims plain packaging won't affect cigarette sales, but may infringe on intellectual property rights. Company spokesperson Chris Bishop spoke to TV1's Q&A yesterday in response to fears of legal action now in progress in Australia. Mr. Bishop does not think changing packets will work. There aren't any studies to suggest that plain packaging will work at stopping people taking up smoking. Now, that is the same as saying getting rid of cigarette advertising in sports won't make any difference. Putting health warning on packaging won't make any difference. Putting the age up won't make any difference. Increasing the price, you're just increasing the cost of living crisis. None of the actions. These cigarette companies, they don't want anything to change. These guys knew that their product was deadly for decades and did nothing about it. Fuck them and fuck everyone that speaks for them. Chris's other position there is that we can't have that because of the black market. Okay, cool. You've just stumbled into an argument for legalizing cannabis again. Like, if that's the reason that we don't want a black market, cool. Follow that thought. And then if it's about ram raiding and crime, it is easier to protect and defend and monitor fewer locations.
Yeah, of course. So you could turn it into Fort Knox and they wouldn't get in. But remember as well, really important, right? Ben Udan, who we talked to last week, his full interview is now available on YouTube if you haven't seen it yet, talked about what National has done, and excuse me while I'm looking at it on my other screen over here, says it's turned smokers into, quote, an expendable source of revenue, right? Because they are going to die, but they're going to pay taxes to the national government so they can give tax cuts. And remember what we were talking about earlier, National has zero incentive to reduce the number of smokers because they need that tax take. They've actually got an incentive. Nicola Willis has got an incentive to have more smokers because then maybe she can do her tax cuts and she won't have to resign her position as finance minister like she promised. Now, I want to show you one more thing, which is actually what happened once they finally admitted it, because there was one thing that News Hub said, which I found particularly interesting. They told Mr. Luxon on Thursday about this, but they haven't changed any of the way they're talking about it since today. So News Hub informed the National Party on Thursday that they were wrong, but they were still doing it through the weekend. Have a listen.
Idiot.
We think it's wrong, for example, to have a single store in Northland. You've got one store in Northland that would be a magnet for crime. It's just obvious that we don't think having a single store in Northland being a target for gangs and driving into a bigger black market is actually a good idea.
You get the picture. News Hub put Luxon right 4 days ago.
There you go.
But even after News Hub pointed out the real number was much higher, Luxon's number 3, former tobacco lobbyist Chris Bishop, was repeating the same line today.
It'd be one store in Northland, that's my understanding, yes.
Whoops. Then hours later, this embarrassing admission.
Yeah, we've got that wrong.
How wrong? Well, the Ministry of Health's own stats available online put it differently.
Actually, there's about 18 in rural Northland, if I remember correctly, and there's about 17 in other in identified towns across Northland. So about 35 in total.
The government needs to stick to the facts, stop using untruths and tobacco industry talking points to justify the repeal of the smoke-free laws.
Now, I wasn't going to include the Alicia Verrill comment there because I thought, they're just having a stab back. But I left it in because the point she made about tobacco talking points, big tobacco talking points, I thought was quite important to get in there, Chewy.
Look, I think it's really important when we talk about anything to do with tobacco with this government. You've got Chris Bishop, who's a former tobacco lobbyist. We know that the Taxpayers Union was set up by his father, who also worked for the tobacco industry and has been absolutely pivotal at chipping away at the government the entire time.
Sorry,
Pat, I just want to use this image. It's just objectively funny.
Oof. It's It's horrific as well.
It's the only time that cigarette warning pictures have caused an increase in purchases of smoke, just for someone that wants to complete their set.
Can I just bring one other thing to the floor as well? Because remember last week, one of the big concerns about money from the government to the media was the appearance of a conflict of interest. Now,
Fucking right there.
Surely a former tobacco lobbyist from the family of tobacco lobbyists talking about tobacco has an appearance of a conflict of interest. So why aren't National applying the same standards to themselves? Remember I said earlier, I'm not just going off on National. I want to apply the same standards to them that they've either promised to stick up to or that they would apply to Labor. This is the standard they've applied to Labor because remember, they were all saying, we don't think the media's done anything wrong, but the appearance of it to the public makes it so that it shouldn't be happening. Well, what about this, guys? What about this?